Good evening and a very warm welcome to St Margaret's. It's very good to have you all with us. And tonight, of course, we are welcoming back someone who has performed with us many times, and it's always a joy to have her with us. And she is marvellous and can enjoy a wonderful evening. Don't worry about programmes. She's going to introduce the music she's playing. And I can see by you all coming here that you're very much looking forward to the concert too. So would you please give a really warm welcome to Beatrice.
To Black and Classical. Classical music by Black women composers, featuring today 3 African-American women composers, Florence Price, Margaret Bonds, and Betty Jackson King. The first, Florence Price, is known to us as a symphonist now. She wrote 4 symphonies and no end of instrumental and vocal works. She was born in 1887. That is 2 years after the abolition of American slavery, and she was, of course, a Black woman. Now, in spite of the context, the time and the place that she was born into, Mississippi, 1887, the Deep South, she rose to giddy heights in her career. At one point, she won 2 national prizes for her compositions, and one Easter Sunday, her song, My Soul is Anchored in the Lord, was radio broadcast from the Lincoln Memorial Steps to the entire American nation. Florence Price was also part of a cultural and creative movement that is now known to us as the 1930s Chicago Renaissance, where people like Louis Armstrong, Mahalia Jackson, herself and others, Langston Hughes, had incredible creative output from the African-American voice. But it was deeper than that. Florence Price, in particular, fused her classical music with Black heritage music like jazz, blues, ragtime, African stick dances, but most importantly, Negro spirituals. And she did that to empower the Black identity, to take back human dignity for herself and the Chicago American communities. Well, this first piece, Fantasy Negra, number 2 in G minor, has influences of Chopin, Rachmaninoff, ragtime, and American folk all rolled into one. Thank you very much. So, a little bit more about Florence Price. She did arrive to giddy heights in her career, but it wasn't without continual struggle. So, I mentioned she was born in the Deep South, and then she went to study at Music Conservatoire at the New England Conservatory. She lied on her application form, and she told them that she was Mexican. She was, in fact, mixed heritage Black, but she did that because she felt she would have an easier time at university if she said that she was Mexican. You see, she was not allowed to live in the university halls with her other peer students. She had to live off campus and then come in to study. And she was not allowed to eat in the university canteen. However, she did great with her studies, and she graduated in organ, in piano, in composition, and in conducting. And then she became the head of music at Atlanta State University, married a Black lawyer, and had 3 daughters. So everything seemed quite finely balanced. Life seemed, fairly okay. And then they decided to go back home to Mississippi, which sounds reasonable, doesn't it? They went back home, and Florence found that she was not allowed, or not permitted by the state to teach music. So after she had just been a head of music, she wasn't even allowed to take on private students in her home. And that's because music teachers in that state at that time had to apply for a license, and hers was denied on account of her color. Her husband, who had had a good law firm before they moved, couldn't get clients. And then things really came to a head when a middle-class Black man in their town was hung publicly by the Ku Klux Klan. And then her daughter became the target of another supremacist group. But at that point, they decided to leave Mississippi and go to Chicago. Now, a lot of Black families at that time were leaving the South and going to places like Chicago. One push factor was the Great Depression, but another was situations that Florence firsthand had experienced. When she went to Chicago, her music career really started to flourish. She got many performances, she won competitions, she set up chamber music groups. She was really well received. One thing that she was really famous for was not just putting on, writing these big works and kind of doing big concerts, but also mentoring the younger generation. One of her students, Margaret Bonds, is also in this program. I'll hear about her music later. But Clouds, the next piece on the program, is not about the weather. Clouds in African American art is a symbol for freedom. And it comes from the idea that you can't catch a cloud, you can't pin it down, you don't know where it's going, you don't know where it's coming from. And interestingly, this next piece, it is classical, it's written in a classical structure, but it sounds like an improvisation. She did it on purpose, to try and reflect the idea of freedom, to notate something that really probably she just sat at the piano at and poured it out. You're going to hear again influences of Debussy, Ravel, and jazz harmonies. Last Black History Month, I'm sure you're aware, October is Black History Month in the UK. I released Clouds and I think 6 other tracks as part of an EP called Black and Classical. So if you don't know about that EP and you want to take this concert home with you, you're very welcome to stream it on every streaming platform that there is, I think, has that EP. Or if you want a hard copy, if you still have a CD player, just come to the back at the end of the concert and purchase a copy, and I'll sign it for you later on. Right, now Margaret Bonds, who I mentioned earlier, was Florence Price's student, and Florence Price called Margaret Bonds my talented young friend. Margaret Bonds was more than talented. She was actually a child prodigy. She was the first African American to perform as a concerto soloist with any professional American orchestra, which she did at 15 years old. The talented young friend, Margaret Bonds, was also the dedicatee of Florence Price's Fantasy Negra No. 1. Now, she wrote 4. I just played No. 2 to start this concert, but No. 1 is dedicated to Margaret Bonds. No. 1 is pretty hard to play, and she would have been younger than 15 at the time. I also mentioned that Florence Price won a number of competitions. Now, yes, the collaboration, I would say, between Florence Price and Margaret Bonds played a pivotal role in those competitions, because Margaret Bonds would premiere Florence Price's piano works. So those competitions were won by Florence Price, but the performer was Margaret Bonds. Margaret Bonds wrote over 500 works. We have about just under a quarter of them. Some of the major ones, like Montgomery Symphonic Variations, were found in a dumpster. So quite a lot of those compositions weren't preserved, and we still have to find out where many of them still are. Over 50 of them were arrangements of Negro spirituals. And I'm going to play one for you now on the piano. I played a piano piece called The Valley of the Bones, and it's based on the Negro spiritual that goes like this. Bones for dem, or the foot bone connects to the knee bone, and the knee bone, okay? But she makes it into a kind of slightly virtuosic piano solo. However, there are 2 versions of this composition of hers, or 2 compositions based on her idea. One is the piano solo, one is an art song for soprano and piano. And if you've been to one of my concerts before, I can see maybe 2 or 3 of you. I think the majority of you haven't. I like to give you 2 for the price of 1. So what I like to do is have you sing the art song while I play the piano version. Some of you are looking very uncomfortable. Don't worry, it's a lot of fun. You're not going to sing any of the high soprano notes, just a couple of choruses. Okay, the best thing that needs to happen now is I'm going to tell you the story behind this song, and I'm going to teach you your part, and then we're going to jam together. So the story is from the Bible, from the book of Ezekiel. And Ezekiel was an Old Testament prophet who was taken out into the desert. And in the desert, there are lots and lots of dry skeletal bones. And God said to Ezekiel, Ezekiel, can these bones live? And Ezekiel said, well, only you know, Lord, which is an interesting question, because scientifically they can't. Anyway, Margaret Bonds depicts this desert as quite arid and dry and sad, like this. So if these bones can't live, probably Ezekiel, the prophet, knows something about God that science doesn't. And the next thing that happens is God starts to blow his breath over these bones like this. And for those of you who know the story, the next thing that happens is these bones come to life and they start to connect, okay, until they become a full-blown skeletal system. And it's a message of hope that things that you thought were dead under the breath of God can have life again. But you need to sing about this. So can everyone stand up, please? Thank you so much. Okay, to your feet if you can and if you want to, ladies and gentlemen. It's not obligatory. Okay, so the part that you need to sing is the chorus. It goes like this. Bone for dem, a bone for dem. Bone for dem, a bone for dem. Bones for dem, a bone for dem. Okay, after 4, can everyone say after me, just speaking it out, bones a dem, a bones a dem. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bones a dem, a... That's super. Now, twice the volume. 3, 4. Bones a... That is perfect. I hope this microphone is going to stay. I think it is. Here's your note. We're going to do bones a dem, a bone for dem. 3 times after 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bones a dem. Twice as loud. Bone for dem. Even louder. Bones a dem, a bone for dem. You have it. Okay, it's not over yet, okay? The next thing we need is a little bit of percussion. You're going to be the rhythm, I'm going to be the bass. So get your fingers out, ready to click. Perfect. Okay, or clap. Okay, join in with me if you know this. From the toe bone to the foot bone, from the foot bone to the ankle bone, from the ankle bone to the knee bone, from the knee bone to the hip bone. That sounds very merry. Well done. Give yourselves a round of applause. That's excellent. Okay, very good. Now, we're going to do the whole thing. That was our rehearsal. We're ready to perform already. You can sit down. We're going to start in the desert with a little motif I played at the beginning. It's going to be a bit longer. When I sit down, you can sit down. As soon as I stand up, you need to stand up because that's when the audience choir joins us. Okay. 4 bones for dem, a bones for dem. 3 times after 4 beats. And then we're going to keep going into our clicks. Okay, if you want to join in, the order is toe, foot, ankle, knee, and hip. When I sit down, ladies and gentlemen, it's very important that you sit down again, because I'm going to change tempo, and it will get messy if you're still clicking, okay? So when I sit down, no more clicking, if you can. Okay, here we go. This is Valley of Bones by Margaret Bonds, slightly shaken and stirred by Beatrice Nicholas. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bones for dem, bones for dem. Bones for dem, bones for dem. Bones for dem, bones for dem. Well, the toe bone to the foot bone, and the foot bone to the ankle bone, and the ankle bone to the knee bone, and the knee bone to the hip bone. Thank you very much. Wonderful. You did a great job. I loved to perform with you just then. Okay, now, probably my favorite pieces that I like to play from the EP are 4 seasonal sketches by Betty Jackson King. But my favorite piece from the EP is probably Clouds by Florence Price. So Betty Jackson King was a baby when Florence Price and Margaret Bonds had their heyday in the 30s and 40s. Because King was born in 1930 and died in 2004, which means that parts of her life have lots to do, or lots in common with parts of our lives. And I feel very blessed that her one and only surviving relative, Arlene Sharp, who lives in Chicago, her niece, has struck up this amazing sort of online friendship with me that I hope when I go to America will become in person. And she publishes her works, and she owns the estate of the composer, who of course is now passed away. And one thing that Arlene did for me is that she put me in contact with everyone that she could think of who is still alive, who knew Betty Jackson King professionally and musically when she was alive. And one of these people is Dr. Marvin Curtis, a composer who was mentored by Betty Jackson King from a young boy right into his early career. And he happens to be the composer that wrote the anthem for Bill Clinton's presidential inauguration. And he is an absolutely gorgeous man. You know, all those kind of warm people that kind of make you melt on the inside. You can find, actually on my YouTube channel, you can find a Zoom interview that I did with him about Betty Jackson King's music. And he told me that he first met her as a boy. And she was this very, very short, tiny-framed woman. But when she got onto the rostrum to conduct, he said she was a powerhouse. She was always kind, but there was no way that you would mess with her. And there was no way musically you'd do anything else that she was not doing, because she was just so powerful in her musicianship. The 4 seasonal sketches, a work of 4 pieces named after the seasons. So we're going to have Spring Intermezzo, Summer Interlude, Autumn Dance, and Winter Holiday, which really have nothing to do with Christmas, you'll hear it. They're dedicated to an African-American musicologist and college professor called Dr. Geneva Handy Southall, who passed away, I think, in 2001. And King dedicated these 4 pieces to her to honor her for the way that she preserved the legacy of lots of African American musicians, and particularly one man called Blind Tom Higgins. Has anyone heard of Blind Tom Higgins? Yes. So he was a 19th century black pianist who was born into slavery and was never freed. He became a national piano star, and he always remained a slave. So his slave owners on the plantation that he was born onto, because he was blind, they felt that there was not much point in putting him out to work. So he was left as a child to roam around the plantation, roam around the house, and do whatever he wanted. History doesn't say that he was mute, but he didn't really talk, he would grunt. And at some point, at a very young age, he came across his slave owner's piano. And he just never stopped playing it day and night. And really, it was his form of communication. But he was also a genius. And by the time he was still a young child, he was composing. He learned how to write music when people realized, how quick he was. He could do everything from ear. And very soon, people from the local neighborhood would kind of gather around him in the house to listen to him play. Then his owners realized that they could exploit this gift. So they took him on these huge American tours where he kind of played everywhere and became viral in his day. And his owners made enormous amounts of money from him. He never was given a penny, and he actually died a slave. It's a very sad story. And King wanted to honor this woman who made sure that he remained in the history books. So these are the 4 seasonal sketches by Betty Jackson King in honor of Dr. Geneva Handy Southall. last piece, which circles back to Margaret Bonds, I just want to talk quickly about a couple of things I've got coming up that may interest you. I thought, oh yeah, there's two little girls at the back. This is for you, little girls. This is for you, okay? On the 22nd of November, I'm going to play a concert for children. You can bring your parents if you like, but it's primarily for you. And it's called Beatrice, the Amazing Astronaut. It's in South East London at Blackheath Halls, and it's going to be very interactive and fun. Bring your children, your grandchildren, pinch some kids, or come alone if you're a big kid. I'm going to let the video speak for itself. You can just see a little trailer of it. I'll tell you what, I'll tell you about the next event, and we'll come back to the video, okay? So this EP that you're hearing live, I released last Black History Month, October 2024. This Black History Month, I have a new program called Classical Swing, which I can't play for you this evening because I do it with my jazz trio. And it's a focus on African-American female jazz legends who trained first to be concert pianists and were denied access into the profession, and so became jazz musicians and fused their jazz with classical music. And those people may surprise you. They are Nina Simone, Hazel Scott, Lil Hardin Armstrong, who was Louis Armstrong's second wife, and Dorothy Donegan. And that's next Friday in Bedford if you want some more. But for now, this is almost there. This is going to be. I think we have to let it run, don't we? Because at the end. It's coming, ladies and gentlemen. But for now, you can see the date and the time. There we go. Don't worry too much, though. If it's not. Okay. So we would love you to be there. Thank you so much. I have at the back next to my CDs these little cards. If you turn them around, there's a QR code. Scan that, and you'll have all my online platforms: Spotify, Apple website, concert listings, YouTube, all on your phone. And so if you want to come to something, then you know how to. I have to go on the dot tonight at 5 p.m. to get to my friend's concert. So if you do buy a CD, please make sure you find me to sign up before 5 p.m. But for now, I think, what time is it? Maybe I'll go at 5 because I haven't finished playing yet. We're going to have another piece by Margaret Bonds. This is called Troubled Water, and it's based on the Negro spiritual Wade in the Water.
I know Beatrice is looking to make a quick runaway, so I'll be very brief, but she blows me away, just the most amazing performances, and I hope that you really enjoyed tonight. Do see her, she's going to be at the back. Feel free to have a chat, but also buy a CD, and please do keep donating to our concerts, as that's what enables us to keep them going and getting these wonderful musicians to come. So a final thank you to Beatrice.